mean, I wrote down in my notes, like I kept saying during these shows I wasn't mad, but I probably was. It's just so emotional. And I don't know if we put some sort of like process or learning in place where we escape the emotions of something like this next time. With regards to 2020, the politicization that Donald Trump, like that path he took, and it was very distinctive when he took it. There was another option available to us that I think could have taken us somewhere different. And I think, but there, again, just like I said in that clip, there was politicization on both sides. So I would love if we wouldn't do that, but I think that's probably naive. Like for myself, were we to go through something like this again, I guess I would just, I don't know, wake up every morning and give myself a little pep talk. Like you don't have to prove that you're a good person through the choices you make in this incredibly difficult situation. Because that's what I hear when I listen to those episodes. Me just trying to prove over and over again that I was a good person, that I cared, and that I was doing the right thing because I'm a good person and I care. And I care because I'm a good person. I'm doing the right things because I care. Like I can just, it's like the heartbeat underneath everything I'm saying. Like I'm always just, again, trying so much try hard during these years to prove that like I care about the right things and I'm listening to the right scientists and I'm making the right calls in my life because I'm listening to the right scientists because I'm a person who cares in the world. I'm not a cruel person. You know, I'm a good person. And I can just hear that drumbeat, you know?
I think what I will take forward is one, remembering that if you're at the beginning of something, everything that follows is an experiment. Everything is. And so, yes, the guidance might change because they might learn something new. And the initial attempts to contain might not work. And everything is going to take longer than anybody wishes it would take. And absolutely everything is just about risks and benefits. And you've got to give people some space to make their own calls. I've been thinking about this in a lot of public health and just a lot of policy in general. How can we do a better job informing people? Here are the stakes associated with this. For most people, the average experience, and we're a very big country, so there are going to be a lot of things on either side of the average experience. But this is what we think the average experience looks like with path A, path B, and path C. You should know that, factor it in, go forth and do your best. I completely understand from the perspective of public health professionals why that is an infuriating thing to hear, because so much of what really works in public health is collective action, and almost unanimous collective action. I just don't know if we can handle it. This is a weird corollary, but a thing I think I've changed my mind about over the past couple of years is ranked choice voting. I think it's an excellent system. I think it makes so much more sense than what we do now. And I think what we've demonstrated over the past couple of years is we can't handle it. We're not up for the waiting that requires and the subtlety involved and the calculations, even though they're not that hard. We're just not. Like the trust is too low right now. And I think some of what has caused a lot of frustration is that there's a segment of society trying to do democracy 3.0, and the need of society is to hold 1.0 together. And I wonder if that happened here, that we were just going for a better batting average than we were capable of as a public. And so I think what I take from this is like the batting average is going to be lower than you want, Beth. And that's okay, because people assess this through a lot of different prisms.
I mean, I do feel good that like very early in the conversation, we named that this was about risk assessment. Like even I think into 2020, we were like, this is just about risk assessment. And people are really bad at that.
People, including us, right? Like that's not from sitting on high looking down. Like all of us are wired to be bad at risk assessment.
And I think that an objective reality is there is an aspect of an educational experience, particularly, you know, college and law school, that trains you in critical thinking and risk assessment. Doesn't mean you never make mistakes, but I think that's how you get to believing that people can reach the higher batting average than they can, is because, like, you can. And I also think some of it's about risk assessment. And then there's this other big piece of it that is just about control. And when the situation is so dramatically out of your control, people want to control what they can, what they think they can, which is each other. And I don't know if there's a way out of that. I don't know if there's a way when the stakes are high that you don't get people furious that others aren't trying as hard as they are. I just think that that's like there's some like real basic human psychology going on there. And like you can, like we tell stories about like World War II, but like they would also fight and they got mad and they were like, I can't wait to watch Outrageous, the new thing on the Mitford sisters. If you don't know who the Mitford sisters are, they are a rich text. They're this set of British sisters. There's like 7 of them. One of them was a communist. One of them was a crazy Nazi and like the most hated woman in Britain because she thought Nazis were the future. And like, you know, like you see what I'm saying? Like there's just, it's not as simple as we think it was. It's not like everybody just got on board and they never disagreed again. It doesn't matter. I'm sure if anybody who spent any time in like Ukraine right now could tell you about the fights they're having, because I guarantee you they're having some. I've read about some of them. So it's like, that's part of it too, is like, we're going to try to control each other. We're going to fight about things. Like, it doesn't matter how high the stakes are. We're not always going to agree.
And I would add to this reckoning with human behavior that while I don't believe that anyone wants mass death across the globe, there are people who view the statement, a lot of people will die, quite differently than I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it cannot be that all of those people are horrible.
Right.
You remember like weeks ago when Joni Ernst was confronted by a protester who said, you know, people are going to die with this big, beautiful bill. And she responded, well, you know, everybody's going to die. That didn't come out of nowhere. It was a terrible response, to be clear. Politically and substantively terrible. But there are a lot of people who have a higher level of acceptance that, yeah, some things life is hard and terrible and cruel. And I think that what we learned in part from 2021 is you don't win any arguments by trying to talk people out of that fundamental orientation to the universe. Again, I don't know exactly what that means, because I do want to say to people, but like, everybody doesn't have to die this way and right now. And we have ways to prevent suffering. Don't we want to prevent as much suffering as possible? But I did really get in this period and everything that's happened since, just a deeper understanding that people will die is just not a persuasive political argument.
Yeah, because it's reductive. It's like super reductive, because it's telling, there's like a lot tied up in that. You know, there's just, 2021 is when I maybe it was sooner than that, but it definitely felt like where I was just fully done with the like, I can't convince you to care. I just was done. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do everybody accelerate to the point where you want kids to die. And that's how you prove your point. The other side wants kids to die. Like, it's just at the center point of so many really stupid political fights we have in America. Nobody wants kids to die. Like, I understand we have real debates around real issues like abortion and the death penalty and COVID, where life is on the line. But the presence of true sociopaths who do not care about death or the suffering of their fellow human beings is very small inside the population, okay? And it's just not a persuasive argument. Even if it's true, even if you have actually stumbled upon one of those sociopaths, this is not persuasive. It doesn't, the undercurrent of that is basically what's wrong with you. That's what you're saying. People will die. What's wrong with you? I haven't talked about this on the show, but I read How Do You Sleep at Night? It's a really good novel. The premise is that there's a brother and a sister. The sister's the reporter. The brother is gay, married to a basically like MAGA Republican, like a gay MAGA guy who's going to run for office. Okay. And the author, like, she is scratching at some stuff. Good stuff. She made it hard, which I respect.
Yeah.
To sort of like pick a side because it's hard. It's not as simple as what's wrong with you? How do you sleep at night? Never is. And, you know, the people particularly like on the ground in it with like family members trying to sort this out, they can tell you that, you know. I can tell you that with my dad. Having fights with him about, you know, vaccines and all this stuff. And like when he got COVID, I had to like have him text me his pulse ox every like 30 freaking minutes. You know, like it just it was so complicated. And so when you try to make it simple, it just doesn't land. I don't know how to say, like, I don't know. It doesn't work. And I'm interested in things that work, not interested in things that just make us feel better.
And in that vein, you look back and this was a period of real disconnection over politics and COVID for people. Because you couldn't avoid it, right? It became like, who's coming to the wedding? We can't have a funeral. Like, there are just so many places where this hit so hard, so personally, around rituals that really help us make sense of the world and our place in it.
Oh my God, graduations.
Yeah.
The way people had to like go into the hospital, have a baby. It was wild. It was wild out there.
So hard. Of course, we weren't our best selves. Of course, we handled things poorly in certain instances. Of course, relationships got broken because this time just hurt so badly. And I think a long tail of the political scene from 2021 is a belief that democratic politics break relationships. I think this time has provided a lot of fodder for the idea that Democrats do not value families or communities. And I think Democrats take from this time that Republicans don't care about people with severe illnesses, people with compromised immune systems. You know, I think both parties have taken a long-term, you don't care about something that's important to me message from this that is really, really damaging.
Yeah. And look, because that's so tough too, because we get as many emails from people saying, my MAGA relatives have cut me off.
Yes,
like,
we do.
Just,
absolutely.
You know, like, it's not like it's one side owns the corner on this market, because they don't. The idea of, I just can't with you anymore. I read a Substack about somebody who, like, it wasn't even through the lens of party. It was just like the level at which these two people like made choices around COVID got to the point where it ended the friendship. And I just thought, oh man, I think there's something about all these choices inside those rituals, inside our communities, that is just, we're not built for. I mean, like, a kabillion years ago, or even 1,000 years ago, or even a good solid 100 years ago, your people were your people. You don't have a choice. You weren't moving. Neither were they.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you were stuck with them. And, like, that's how we evolved. We didn't evolve, and we certainly don't have the language, the art, the rituals, the processes to discuss what it means when you can choose. You know?
Yeah.
And I think COVID really put that on full display. That we're not, I'm not sure we're up for it.
Well, and we were asked to choose so many things at a time when we just were not at our best. This time felt to me much like the time right after I gave birth, when I was as tired as I had ever been. When you're three months in and you haven't slept through the night once. That's kind of how disoriented I felt during 2021. And so to be making all those choices with all this new information, all this stuff that nothing in my life experience has prepared me for, in fact, a lot that runs counter to everything that my life experience has prepared me for, of course I screwed up. Of course we all did.
And I think for me, I can't decide what this did to my perception of time. But we spent a lot of time talking in 2020 about how we still had fun and we still made memories. And by 2021, we were traveling probably a little bit ahead of most people. We were still careful. We still had to wear masks a lot of places. But hell, we went to Disney in 2020, in October of 2020. And I think that really it detached the timeline for me in this weird way. You know what I mean? It's not like I was felt like everything was normal. I didn't. Our school was still closed on and off all the way through at least spring 2021. But I think being out in the world and leaving this place that we had experienced so much of COVID, at the same time, I'm in the internet space where everybody's basically still really in 2020. It was you know what I mean? In my real life, I was living in 2022, but here on the show, we were still processing everything from 2020. It was I was splintering in some sort of weird Marvel universe timeline kind of way.
And it just was like that. It just was splintered like that. The episode that stuck out to me when I went back to this year was our episode on the supply chain, which was in October of 2021. And
Dang.
In October of 2021, we were asking if there would be turkeys for Thanksgiving. We were seeing empty rows of paper towels on the shelves at Target in October of 2021. And so I think that that's helped me put together why people blame this on the Biden administration, because I think what they heard in the election is we will fix it. And it wasn't fixed immediately. Now, could it have been? Probably not. I think overall the Biden administration did a pretty decent job handling a mess. And there was no good way. And there were always going to be things that were lost and trade-offs in terms of what you pursue and what you let go and the opportunity cost of everything. But it helps me enormously to understand people's frustration about the economy in particular, to realize that in October of 2021, you and I were talking about how the supply chain was fucked. That was the name of our episode.
We also have labor shortages along other parts of the retail process, where people can't find workers in restaurants and grocery stores. We talked about this on the show, that this is in part because of all but complete halting of immigration during the Trump administration. So there's a shortage of immigrant workers. There's the relief from poverty as a motivator to take these low-income jobs provided by the federal government during COVID. Again, this is just one more step in the process that was running with no margin where it needed margin, basically.
And these are hard jobs. The people who are out on ships, who've had to stay out much longer than scheduled during COVID, that's a hard job. Working the floor at Walmart or in an Amazon plant, that's a hard job. And I think that some of what COVID has asked of everyone is, how do you want to be spending your time? And many of these jobs are not just physically demanding and long and, with hours that no one wants to work. They are also dangerous. Even as technology has made so much of this more efficient, there is an element of danger that accompanies much of this work. So because of all these factors converging, we are seeing undeniably some inflation.
And I think what the travel really did for me, it's like we just say COVID. We asked that to do a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
To what? Encompass the experience of someone in Manhattan and also someone in Tallahassee, someone in Utah. Like, those experiences were so dramatically different. And I think, like, when we started to move around and see, like, oh, okay, so this is what we experienced was so dramatically different. Like, I mean, we went to New York City for Christmas in 2021. And I remember seeing, like, the pop-up testing sites and how much, like, direction just to, like, where people should stand and all this stuff. And, like, it was really wild. Like, and there were so many, when I look back on it, like, so many indicators. Like, you would go to Disney, like, there was, like, hyper enforcement of the rules, right? Like, if you pulled your mask down to take a drink of water, they were like, you need to stand in the space. In the midst of, like, Florida. So then you'd leave Disney and you'd, like, go to a restaurant in, like, Orlando.
People are just living their
property,
lives.
And it's like COVID never happened. So it was just like, it's wild out there. Like, and that was good to see. It was just really good to see and realize, like, something traumatic can and should shrink your geography down. So, right, dramatically, right? Like, you're just protecting what you can, you're controlling what you can, you're perceiving just what you can, and, like, realizing, oh, okay, this is why it does feel like we live in different realities, because in a lot of ways we do.
And I think about long COVID, how my mom made it through. I was very worried that she would not make it through COVID, and she did. But she's never been the same. And I think that so many things have long COVID. I think the supply chain had long COVID. It was a long, long time before there was any level of stability. I think very recently we achieved some level of stability, and then the threat of tariffs took that away again.
Yeah.
But a lot of relationships, churches have long COVID for sure. A lot of people stopped coming and just haven't come back. And that has changed everything for those churches. Mine is one of them. I think the Biden administration kind of got long COVID. I think this year and how difficult it was and how disjointed it was and how the policies could not immediately get to the things that were just real pain points in people's lives and people's businesses and schools and all the things. I just think there was no recovering from it.
Well, schools. And look, I don't have long COVID in that I still suffer symptoms. And I'm not trying to put on my amateur virologist hat again, because it was not a good fit for me. But look, pretty much everybody's had COVID at this point. And it changes you. Just like, a flu will change you. Or we don't understand the body enough to understand the impact of viruses. I mean, what was I reading the other day? That, I mean, there was like a long-term, it was like Huntington's or Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And they were like, well, we think maybe it was like just this virus that some people get that just never leaves. I mean, we can't fool ourselves and say, like, there is no tail of this even physically in our own cells. much less inside our culture.
Yeah.